Hello and welcome to Hank Games Without Hank. My name is John Green, manager of the AFC Wimbledon Wimbly Womblys. Today taking on, I'm not quite sure whom, Kappa? I think that's one of their sponsors. We'll find out momentarily. It's on professional skill level though, so we're almost certainly going to lose. Oh, we're taking on Rainham Steel. No, that's another one of the sponsors. Today's topic comes from Zachariah Nelson, who writes, we've donated the project for awesome. Thank you, Zachariah. What are the next steps as a society we need to do to become unified and start governing as a human society? Like as a single, unified human society. Well, we're not headed in that direction right now, Zachariah. I don't know if you've noticed. But I thought this was a really interesting question because, if you look, okay, so I talk about this a lot, but journey back with me, not like 200 years or whatever you think of. We tend to think of as like the past. It's Burr. Nobody knows how to pronounce it for sure. Rosianna, how do you pronounce Barry? Bury. It's right in between Barry and Bury, apparently. It's right there in the middle that I cannot access. Let's go back. Okay, so we've got 250,000 years of human history, give or take, 30,000 years. There have been humans for about that long, including some pretty extended periods. Let's say 200,000 years of humans being in groups that are mostly between 20 and 200, right? Like the biggest human groups were probably was definitely in the triple digits, but probably in the low triple digits, and maybe for a long time in the double digits. We don't really know that much, but forensic anthropology can tell us a fair amount about what human life looked like, at least 50 to 75,000 years ago. And there were not big groups of humans. The first time we had big groups of humans was, around 12,000 years ago with the creation of cities, mostly because of the agricultural. It's got to be! Oh, our first goal on. Oh, wow. Lyle Taylor alone on goal, and he manages not to slot it home. Osseosi manager disappointed. So, with the invention of agriculture, suddenly it's got to be. Oh, with the invention of agriculture, suddenly we have surplus, right? We have more food is being created than is one person is able to create more than one person worth of food. So you have an agricultural surplus. You're able to have kings and cities and job specification, and this is good on many levels for humans because it means that we're able to innovate at a faster rate, that we're able to preserve our innovations through writing, etc. And so we like cities. The question of actually why people live in cities is, I think, the most interesting question in history, and I don't think it's ever been satisfactorily answered because people who live in cities have less leisure time and are less happy and have less sex and also don't live as long or as healthy a life, and their diet isn't as varied. And pretty much by every measure of happiness, cities are bad, except that people like living in cities, and they always have. Oh, you've got to get that ball through. There was a nice run, and then it just didn't work. I don't know if I need to go over the top a little bit by hitting that L bumper, but I didn't do. Whatever I did was wrong. We're still waiting on our first professional skill level goal, but I believe that this is the game, my friends. So, right, we had really, really small communities, and then we had slightly larger communities. But when we're talking about the cities of 10,000 years ago, we're talking about cities of 2,000, 4,000 people, right? We're not talking about even if you look at ancient Rome, we're not talking about modern day Lagos. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people by 10,000 years after the first cities formed. We've got Rome, which is this huge empire, and has a population in the hundreds of thousands, I think. Don't quote me on that. This is a Wimbly Womblys video, not Crash Course. But you can see, over the course of those 10,000 years, there's this slow progress. More cities, more. Well, I say progress. Arguably, it's not progress, but you know what I mean. More cities, more specialization of labor, larger communities, humans gathering in bands, not of 20 or 50 or 100, but in bands instead of hundreds of thousands. Yikes! Oh boy, trying to pass out of the back is a dangerous game. But it's the game we play. That's nice, though. That's a nice series of passes. And then, yeah, just wait for him. Wait for him. Great run by Frankenstein. And then that's good, but not good enough. Needed to be a little deeper to get to the back post there, where both of my strikers were inexplicably hanging out. So then you then it's would have been nice to have a right midfielder in that situation, but it was my right midfielder Frankenstein passing, so that was my bad, I guess. So you move on and you get bigger communities, and then you get these huge empires, from 1,000 years ago until about 500 years ago, and then you have this age of nation states, which in some ways is like less about unity than the era of the big empires, right? Like the Persian Empire featured like in some ways more unity, or the Arab Empire in the 7th and 8th century featured like more cultural and legal and language unity than the era of nation states that we have found ourselves in the last like 200 or so years, or even the same as with the British Empire in the 19th century. This like post-empire era has been somewhat less unified. Now, like I'd argue, I like this nation-state era better than the Age of Empires, because the Age of Empires was extremely, not that we're living in like an age free from exploitation, but like there wasn't as much representative government, etc., etc. That was a nice tackle. More people live in democracies today than ever before, and I think that's good. So I am happy about this development. More people are able to participate in their governance, but we also, that also means that we have less unity in a lot of ways than we used to have. I think that if you look at the overall arc of the human story, you see some periods where there's a retraction away from bigger communities, where there's a retraction away from sort of, for lack of a better term, unification. But mostly the story is that things get more unified. In fact, that's kind of the overwhelming human story. It's a story of things slowly becoming more unified. And I think that will continue, even though we are in a period of retraction. Right now, we're talking about... the other thing I wanted to say is the globalization, like economic globalization that we've seen in the last, especially in the last 30 years, but in a way over the last 100 years, that globalization has been a very unifying thing. We can no longer have, like, the economy, because the economy is no longer separated by country, really. In a lot of ways, the world isn't, because what happens in China deeply affects what happens in the United States. There are not a lot of places that are isolated from that, and lots of people think that's bad. I happen to think it's really, really good. Now, I don't think that globalization has been unambiguously good news for the economy, certainly not for the planet. But I do think that connection of people has been good. It has led to a big reduction in absolute poverty. It's led to lots more people having refrigerators and cell phones, and I think like refrigerated food is good and nice, and I don't want to minimize how great it is, and also how like not guaranteed it is. So I think we are in a period where we're stepping back from that globalization in terms of the power that we give the UN, in terms of maybe like political power, but also in terms of the way we think about how the economy should work, and whether economies should be separated or siloed from each other, or whether there should be lots of tariffs and stuff. We are in a period of less globalization. That said, I think that will end pretty quickly, because I think the downsides of trade wars will become obvious pretty much the moment they start, and people will be like, whoa, I didn't mean that I didn't want air conditioning. I meant that I wanted manufacturing jobs. which I'm totally sympathetic to, but it's very hard to do one without the other. It's very hard to foster manufacturing jobs without dramatically increasing prices, mostly because there's just so many cost savings in the constituent parts coming from various places. I forgot to make substitutions again, and it's going to be another standard Wimbly Wombly 0-0 draw. So I think that we are, even though we are in a moment of things seeming like we're separating, and in some ways we are, I think ultimately, that wasn't a goal, was it? No, it's the end of the game. I think ultimately the long arc of history will bend toward more unity as it has for the last 200,000 years, and the UN will become more powerful, or some cross-national organization will become more powerful, and we will have probably never like a shared single world governance, but we will have world standards that we ask each other and ourselves to live up to, which I think is good, because I believe in human rights, even though it is an idea that we made up together. Thanks for watching. Best wishes.